My name is Chuck Ellis, and this is my resurrection story. I was born in Detroit to a wonderful, loving Christian home and family. My mom and dad were and are amazing. Dad's passed on, but Mom's still kicking pretty good at 97. Mom is a prayer warrior. Dad was a faithful servant of God. We didn't know it until his 70th birthday when all the family was together, and he told us on that day that before he ever married my mother, he'd been an alcoholic. None of us ever knew it. Mom might have, but it was a shock. But evidently, Dad gave his heart and life to the Lord, never drank again, married my mom, and I was so blessed to be in that wonderful Christian home. Grew up in the church. At the age of 14, believed that God was calling me into the ministry. The youth group, friends in the youth group would say, Chuck, how do you know? Well, let me think on that. I'll let you know. About a week later, I came back to him and I said, I can't prove to you that I know. It doesn't matter whether you know or not. I believe it, and you'll just have to wait and see. One of my biggest life problems was growing up in the neighborhood where I grew up. There were about 10 or 12 young boys about my age. I was a little younger, a little smaller, and more mouthy than the rest of them. Back in that day, early on, we didn't even have television, and of course no computers and no indoor stuff to really be doing, so we played outside all the time, and we played a lot of sports. But whatever we were doing, we were fighting. We fought. I grew up with my fists clenched. I eventually became an angry young man, and the sad reality is I became an angry husband. And for many years, I was an angry father. I didn't understand it all. I knew I struggled with some stuff, but it wasn't until I was 47 years old when, dealing with some very real difficulties, very, very deep, emotional, personal stuff, I came to realize that I had an anger problem. And I began to seek the Lord to deal with it. Now, I wasn't a screaming meanie, but if things didn't go the way that I felt like they should, somebody was going to know about it. So many times in my life, I was unkind. The Lord helped me to come to understand and to be aware of it and begin to make the changes that had to be made, and it took about 5 years before I could look at myself in the mirror and say, Chucky, baby, you're going to make it. God's been so good. And I've thought many times that God must have called me into the ministry just to save me, because my life changed after that. Oh, there were youth leaders, parents, other parents of friends of mine in the church. They lived it. They loved us. They were so very faithful. And it was so real and evident. I didn't have to wonder or search. It was just real, and I could grab a hold of it in my own life. And out of that youth group, growing up, I met Luann, who we were married for 50 years before she passed away. And we were so blessed together to serve the Lord. She herself was called into church music ministry. Had her degree from Olivet in music, and eventually got her master's in education from Trevecca. But she chose to not teach, but to work with me and serve the Lord in the church full time. And we did that for years together. Two of our children, our two sons, are worship pastors, and wonderful men serving God, and God's using them. Several years ago, Luann passed away, and I remarried to a wonderful, godly woman. Helen is such a blessing. God's good to be able to have Helen with me, and she challenges me spiritually many times. I'm so thankful for God's goodness in Helen being my wife today. Well, Helen and I live up in Houston County, and we were attending the Erin Church. We came here to visit on Easter for the first time because of my sister-in-law, Marty. We loved it. Loved the church, loved the pastor, the preaching, the spiritual fellowship that we witnessed here. And we became aware that there was a Celebrate Recovery program here. Many years ago, I stopped being a senior pastor. The Lord started changing my head and my heart toward recovery ministry when I was in a doctoral program, and I eventually became pastor of Recovery Ministries. And so I have a heart for Celebrate Recovery, and because you guys have a Celebrate Recovery program, I wanted to be a part of it. So we started coming here. I'm thankful that I have not only the training ministerially and as a counselor. I love being able to help people dealing with their struggles. God's helped me so much through my own struggles, and I've had help from pastors and counselors and mentors who've helped me through it all, and I just want to be available to help anybody and everybody that I can in dealing with their struggles, because God is faithful all the way to the end. The church gives me a place to be able to be a part of a spiritual fellowship where hurting people are. I kind of look at the church as like a spiritual hospital. We come to the place with our hurts, our hang-ups, our habits, and we find grace and mercy and love and help and the goodness of God in the church fellowship. And I want to be a part of all of that. And I'm just so thankful that I am a part of the family of God here at our church. I'm Chuck, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me.